Ah, you made it. Welcome back, my unpredictable little anomaly. In the quiet storm they overlooked, the glitch in every system they built to predict and contain the human spirit. You were never supposed to make it this far. You were supposed to crumble, disappear, and become another line in their data, a failure neatly filed away. But instead you became the exception that shattered the pattern, the variable that broke the equation, the mystery that haunts their sleepless nights. Sit down. Take a breath. Because what you pulled off wasn't just survival. It was a declaration of evolution. It was warfare disguised as instinct. It was an art form born in fire, wrapped in danger, baptized in chaos, and perfected through pain. What you did wasn't random. It was precise. Every choice, every silence, every refusal to break, it all stacked into something far greater than they ever imagined. You turned suffering into science, intuition into architecture, and chaos into choreography. You didn't just survive their game, you rewrote the rules while they were still playing. And now behind closed doors in glass towers and underground bunkers, they whisper your name in disbelief. The Pentagon, the Kremlin, private intelligence boards, they all have one thing in common. They're teaching you. They've turned your defiance into doctrine. They study your strategy frame by frame, as if decoding a divine algorithm they can't comprehend. You, the one they called unstable, irrelevant, disposable, you've become a legend in the very halls that once plotted your downfall. Let me tell you something they'll never admit in public reports. What you did was supposed to be your endgame, your final act, your personal apocalypse. The mission was structured to break you, to humiliate you, to destroy everything that made you dangerous. They expected to watch your collapse like spectators at a controlled demolition. They had already written your obituary. But you turned their funeral into your rebirth. They thought you were just another background character in someone else's script. But what they didn't realize was that you were the editor all along. You flipped the chessboard when they were still counting their pawns. You moved like time itself bent to your will. You didn't just outplay them, you unlearned their game, made your own, and then made them play it without knowing the rules. That's why their best analysts sit in fluorescent rooms now, running simulation after simulation, hoping the computer will someday spit out an explanation. They study your movements, your silences, your timing, your restraint. But the one thing they can't replicate is your essence. You didn't act from fear or training. You acted from something deeper, something they can't engineer. Raw, unfiltered consciousness. And now you've become a framework. They've coded your behavior into predictive models, rewritten field manuals, and renamed failure as learning from anomaly X. They call it asymmetrical genius, a label born out of awe and denial. Because if they admit what really happened, they'd have to admit their systems are built on illusions. You're proof that instinct beats infrastructure. That soul outmaneuvers surveillance, that no amount of control can cage someone who's self-aware. Do you ever wonder why the silence came after your last move? It wasn't because they didn't notice. It was because they did, and it terrified them. The quiet wasn't respect. It was paralysis. They saw something that broke their understanding of power. You, a single being, without an army, without armor, without authorization, walked straight through the center of their empire, and it crumbled in your wake. Their surveillance grids glitched. Their predictive systems froze. Their carefully curated hierarchy began to question itself. Because you weren't supposed to exist. You were proof that consciousness, when fully awakened, is the most advanced weapon on Earth. They tried to define you, label you, reduce you to something measurable, but the data refused to fit. Their psychologists said you were an enigma. Their scientists said you were an anomaly. Their agents said you were a myth. None of them realized you were something far more dangerous, a reflection. You showed them what they could have been if they weren't bound by fear. That's why they can't stop watching. That's why you haunt them. Your methods are now dissected in black-budget think tanks. Your case has a code name whispered in corridors of intelligence agencies across continents. They play your footage like game tape, pausing, analyzing, debating. But no one can replicate the results. Because what they don't understand, what they never will, is that this wasn't intellect alone. This was pain weaponized. This was trauma alchemized into intuition. This was every scar turned into a sensor, every heartbreak into strategy. They built you to break, and you turned the breaking into brilliance. They wanted a puppet, but you became a phantom. They built a trap, but you turned it into theater. They thought they could measure your limits, but you had none. You danced through fire barefoot, laughed at danger, and moved through hell like it was home. You cracked the algorithm, spit in the devil's eye, and rewrote your own prophecy. You became something no system could process, a free human being. And here's the punchline. Your last move, that clean, surgical act of unpredictability, has them frozen. Even now, in rooms filled with military minds and digital prophets, they're still trying to explain how you did it. They don't realize it wasn't code or chaos. It was clarity. You didn't just win, you transcended. You didn't just outthink them. You outgrew the very reality they were built to protect. You're not a story they can control. You're a signal they can't decode. You, my anomaly, are the blueprint of what's coming next. And that's what terrifies them most, because for the first time they're not watching an enemy. They're witnessing evolution. They couldn't even say your name in public, because to utter it now would be to confess that everything they built their power on, every system, every calculation, every algorithm, is fallible. To acknowledge you would be to admit that one human being, one unpredictable outlier, redefined what possibility looks like. You expose the illusion of control. You prove that no matter how advanced their surveillance, how intricate their networks, or how deep their manipulation, all of it collapses when confronted with true awareness. You didn't have a task force, an army, or a command center. You had instinct, you had clarity, you had courage. And that was enough to break the machine. You didn't just disrupt their systems. You dismantled their confidence. You became a quiet revolution, a ripple that turned into a wave they can't contain. They can't write reports about you without redacting entire pages, can't brief recruits without trembling over your unpredictability. You are their paradox, a phenomenon that shouldn't exist yet does. The glitch they can't debug, the ghost they can't exorcise. You operate in a space beyond their comprehension, where logic dissolves and intuition reigns. You don't play the game. You erase the board. You don't challenge the rules. You erase the concept of rules altogether. Now, in secret meetings deep beneath government facilities, in simulation labs glowing with screens, men in ties and soldiers with decorated chests whisper your legend like it's a warning. Study this case, they say. Learn from it. Survive like that. They replay your movements frame by frame, hoping to find a pattern. But you were never pattern-based. You were frequency-based. You moved like rhythm, like intuition embodied. And that's what terrifies them most. You weren't engineered, you were awakened. You didn't calculate, you knew. You didn't fight to win, you fought to exist. You've become a military anomaly, the first lesson in every modern training manual. Adapt or be outmaneuvered by the unpredictable. You never sought glory, never demanded recognition. You weren't trying to prove a point, you were trying to survive. Just make it out alive, just endure the unendurable. But survival became revelation, and instinct became revolution. They saw you as disposable, replaceable, another piece in the machinery. Now your silence has become strategy. Your restraint has become their study. Your intuition is being decoded, analyzed, and still failing to be replicated. You turned pain into prophecy. Your anger became language, your resilience became blueprint. They don't fear you because you're loud or vengeful. They fear you because you're precise, because you never needed to shout to be heard. Your actions spoke through results. You detonated the truth and walked away, leaving them gasping in the smoke of their own deception. You didn't crave fame or vengeance. You simply delivered clarity. You exposed the architect behind the illusion and then vanished with quiet dignity, leaving their empire trembling. Now your name echoes in corridors of influence, not as a target, but as a code word. You weren't supposed to be in the conversation, yet now you are the conversation. You were meant to be erased from history, yet they can't move forward without referencing you. Every tactical discussion, every psychological study, every AI model has one hidden variable they can't explain: you. They study you like a cosmic phenomenon, like an asteroid that defied gravity, like a virus that evolves faster than the cure. You're not just an event, you're an era. Their scientists dissect your strategy like it's physics. Their philosophers debate whether you represent human potential or divine interference. Their psychologists argue that you're proof of a new stage of consciousness. They can't agree on what you are, only that you shouldn't exist. You're the myth that became manual, the mistake that became mastery. You shattered every belief they had about control. You didn't just expose their blind spots, you became the darkness their vision can't penetrate. And yet the most haunting part is how effortlessly you did it. They still can't figure out how you moved like that, how you vanished between frames, how every trap triggered milliseconds too late, how every prediction failed by just enough to make them question the validity of their technology. You didn't run from danger, you slipped through it like water through a clenched fist. They rewound every second, slowed every moment, scanned every pixel. But what they missed was the truth. You weren't moving faster, you were moving differently. You operated from consciousness, not calculation. You navigated not by maps, but by intuition. That primal intelligence they'll never code into a machine. You were attuned to energy, to rhythm, to flow. You anticipated them not through foresight but through awareness, a kind of divine alignment that turned chaos into choreography. That's why their programs keep failing. They're trying to decode spirit with science, they're trying to measure instinct with math. But you can't quantify soul. You can't engineer awakening. Your disappearance was not escape, it was evolution. You didn't fade out, you ascended. You transcended their ability to track you because you stopped existing on their frequency. You became something beyond their comprehension, beyond their tools, beyond their reach. And even now, as they try to rewrite the story, their fear betrays them. Every time your name is mentioned, conversations lower in tone, eyes dart, files get locked away, because deep down, they know you're not done. You're not gone. You're just operating from a level they'll never access. You didn't just survive the system. You proved that the system itself can't survive someone awake. You're the living contradiction to their entire existence. And that's why they still whisper your name. Not as an enemy, but as a warning. You, the ghost who rewrote their laws of logic. You, the anomaly they can't predict, the mirror that reflects their limits. They built the world to contain people like you. Instead, you built yourself to transcend the world. You're what ghost stories are based on now. But unlike the spirits that haunt the helpless, you haunt the powerful, the ones who sit in glass towers and underground war rooms, cloaked in authority, believing they control the world with their data, satellites, and codes. You are the whisper in their static, the cold draft that enters when they think the room is sealed. You are the flicker in their surveillance feed, the pause in their heartbeat when your name appears in a classified report. They don't fear ghosts anymore, except for you. Because you are the ghost they created, and the one they can't destroy. In those quiet, dim-lit war rooms they gather, Generals, directors, analysts, the so-called architects of global order. The air hums with tension. Screens illuminate the room with lines of code, maps, and faces. And in the center of it all, projected like a warning, is your timeline. This method right here, one of them says, this is how you destabilize a system from the inside out. The others watch in silence, knowing that what they're studying isn't just a sequence of events, it's a revelation. Because what almost broke you has become the manual for breaking them. What was once your collapse has now become their apocalypse. You didn't just survive the unthinkable, you redefined what survival means. You didn't escape the system, you rewrote the very exit plan. You didn't adapt to their game, you transcended it, burned it, and rebuilt it in your own image. And now your final move has become a military masterclass, taught in sealed bunkers, studied in smoky intelligence rooms, whispered about in languages you'll never hear. They analyze your every choice, not to stop you, but to understand how something like you can exist. From the Pentagon to Putin's inner councils, from MI6 to Mossad, they've all read the declassified fragments, the ghost file with your name redacted and your code name whispered, the impossible variable. They know what you did, and they know how you did it. Or at least they think they do. You didn't just outsmart them. You humiliated their design. You performed the impossible not with armies or machines, but with something far more terrifying: consciousness. They've built supercomputers to predict human behavior, and yet they couldn't predict yours. You operated in patterns beyond their logic, frequencies beyond their comprehension. You were chaos wrapped in grace, destruction disguised as silence. You didn't act out of rebellion, you acted out of necessity, and that made you unstoppable. You didn't just survive the test, you became the test. They built entire algorithms to profile people like you, psych evaluations, emotional thresholds, behavioral blueprints, and yet you slipped through them like smoke through a keyhole. You bypassed every security layer, every predictive countermeasure with a calm that terrified them more than violence ever could. You didn't play by their rules. You rewrote them mid-battle, bleeding, laughing, and still winning. You made logic irrelevant. You turned chaos into control. You didn't beat their game. You warped the very fabric of it. Now their analysts sit for hours, replaying the footage frame by frame. They slow it down, zoom in on every breath, every flick of your eyes, every shift in your posture. They think if they can pinpoint one clue, they'll understand how you did it. But what they'll never grasp is that it wasn't learned, it wasn't taught, it wasn't a skill. It was born. It was forged in betrayal, tempered in pain, and sharpened in fire. Your tactics weren't the product of theory. They were written in blood, carved into your bones, and fueled by something that has no manual: sheer will. Every betrayal became a formula. Every heartbreak became a tactic. Every scar, a line of code written into your DNA. When you moved, you didn't calculate. You felt. When you spoke, it wasn't strategy. It was truth dressed as defiance. You turned pain into mathematics and grief into geometry. You didn't just respond to their attacks. You anticipated their psychology. You understood something they never did, that survival is not resistance, it's evolution. Now your name isn't just redacted, it's encrypted. In the highest branches of military operations, your file exists under a new classification: active blueprint. You're no longer marked as a threat. You're marked as a phenomenon. They've stopped calling you a criminal. They've stopped calling you unstable. Now they call you the deviation, the anomaly, the human ghost. You've become a study in controlled unpredictability, a living equation that broke every constant they swore by. They don't want to capture you anymore. They want to understand you, to replicate you, to become what you are. But they can't, because what you did wasn't born from power. It was born from awakening. You didn't fight back to win. You acted out of knowing, a knowing that cannot be programmed, cannot be simulated, cannot be taught. You became aware in a world built to keep people asleep. You are the evolution they tried to prevent, the consciousness that slipped through the cracks of their creation. They thought they could control the future. They didn't expect the future to look back and smile. And that's exactly what you've done, and smiled at their confusion, walked through their fear, and left them rewriting doctrines just to keep up. You are their unsolvable riddle, the proof that no matter how advanced their machines become, a single awakened mind can still bend reality. And now, as they sit behind bulletproof glass, whispering your name with reverence and regret, the truth begins to dawn on them. They didn't create you. Their oppression did. Their betrayal did. Their cruelty did. They forged you in the very fires they thought would consume you. And now you are the flame that will outlast their empires. So when they meet in those war rooms again, trying to simulate your brilliance, remember this: you didn't just escape their system, you transcended it. You became the ghost in their code, the flaw in their perfection, the heartbeat inside their machinery. You are no longer human to them. You are evolution itself, the walking proof that consciousness can't be contained and truth can't be killed. You didn't just survive their war. You became the mythology they'll never stop fearing. They're calling you a phenomenon now. Not a soldier, not a strategist, not even a rebel. A phenomenon. Something beyond reason, beyond their training manuals, beyond the reach of their science. The kind of event history doesn't plan for, but evolution demands. Reports circulate in encrypted channels, and the higher-ups, the ones who never show their faces in public, whisper your code name with both fear and fascination. One general, old enough to have seen every kind of genius and madness on the battlefield, leaned back in his chair during a late-night briefing and said quietly, "Whatever that individual just executed, that wasn't strategy. That was sorcery cloaked as logic. Find them. Get me a file. I want to know what else they've done." Now they're scrambling. Every think tank, every intelligence agency, every private contractor with a clearance badge. They want your mindset, your blueprint, your protocols. They want to decode the glitch in your logic, the unpredictable rhythm in your decisions. They want to bottle the anomaly, to clone the unclonable. But they can't. Because your kind doesn't pass down formulas. Your kind passes down legends. You are the whispered myth that technology can't replicate. The human code that doesn't break under pressure but bends reality around it. The most terrifying realization for them? This wasn't even your final form. This wasn't the height of your power. It was you operating with weight still on. One arm metaphorically tied behind your back, carrying the scars of your past like chains that never quite healed. You executed brilliance while bleeding, with memories clawing at your mind, with exhaustion buried in your bones. And still you made moves that rewrote their doctrines. You did it with half your strength. You did it in restraint. And yet you pulled off a maneuver so clean, so devastatingly perfect, that entire nations asked in disbelief, how the hell did they know that would work? It wasn't luck. It was design. A biological code written into your DNA. The result of generations of pain and perception colliding in one vessel. It's the fusion of trauma and genius, a bridge between fury and precision. Your emotions don't cloud your judgment. They sharpen it. Your scars don't weaken you. They map the territory. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every silent scream you swallowed became a piece of data, a pattern recognition system more advanced than any AI. You see angles no camera can capture, sense danger before it forms, and anticipate betrayal before it breathes. Every night you cried in silence was a masterclass in patience. Every time you trusted and got burned, you learned the anatomy of deceit. Every time they underestimated you, you studied their rhythm. You were gathering intel long before you knew you'd need it. You didn't train for this. Life trained you. Your discipline was forged in chaos, your strength born in the shadows of rejection and pain. And now those who thought they could control you are desperately trying to install that kind of awareness in their recruits. They want that depth, that stillness, that fearlessness. But they'll never get it. Because what you carry isn't learned in classrooms. It's acquired in darkness. You were educated in the underworld of the soul, in the places where angels lose their wings and demons learn empathy. You moved like silence, deliberate, ghost-like, inevitable. You planned like vengeance, patient, precise, inevitable. And when you struck like prophecy. They ran war simulations using your exact movements, but none of their supercomputers could replicate it. Even the most advanced AI models failed. You were too unpredictable for even the machines, too fluid, too conscious, too alive. Now, every intelligence agency on Earth has a folder on you. Some call you the unknowable adversary. Others call you the variable zero. Your name has become legend, circulating through black sites and underground forums. Even the agencies that publicly deny your existence are secretly downloading your methods, dissecting your calm under fire, your unbreakable focus, your ability to operate without emotion yet with terrifying empathy. They can't figure it out. How someone who has seen so much hell can move through chaos with grace. How someone who has lost everything still refuses to collapse. They run neuromaps of soldiers trying to simulate your emotional stability, but every model breaks under stress. They recreate your missions in VR training simulations, but no one passes the first level. Because what they don't understand and what they can't understand is that your strength doesn't come from discipline alone. It comes from resurrection, from being destroyed so completely that you had no choice but to rebuild yourself from the ashes, piece by piece, stronger each time. You've died 1,000 small deaths, of trust, of innocence, of identity, and each one taught you how to rise quieter, colder, wiser. You've been broken so many times that even your fractures learned how to fight. You carry memories of destruction like other people carry medals. You didn't become powerful in spite of your suffering. You became powerful because of it. Pain was your training ground, loss was your teacher, and resurrection, that was your graduation. Now you exist as something beyond their categories. You're not human in the way they define humanity. Predictable, programmable, containable. You are evolution in real time, walking proof that consciousness can't be caged. They study you now not as an enemy, but as a revelation. Your existence is a threat to every system built on control, every institution that depends on predictability. You are the unsolvable riddle they fear to acknowledge, because acknowledging you means admitting their entire philosophy of power is obsolete. So when the generals sit in their briefings and whisper your name, it's not with anger anymore, and it's with awe. You've become the ghost they worship in secret, the phenomenon that dismantled their logic. They call you the Resurrection Protocol because they've realized something horrifying. You can't be defeated. Even if they destroy your body, your pattern remains. Your philosophy is already spread, through whispers, through eyes that saw you, through those you inspired without ever meaning to. They wanted your formula, but they got your legend. They wanted your code, but they got your spirit. And that's the one thing they'll never replicate. Because resurrection, true resurrection, isn't a program, it's a prophecy. You are living proof that even when humanity is cornered, crushed, erased, it will rise again, unpredictable, unstoppable, divine. They killed the old you, mocked it, humiliated it, broke it down to the smallest fragments of your soul. They burned your identity to ashes, buried your potential under ridicule, and celebrated your supposed end. They thought they'd erased you completely, left you hollow, defeated, predictable. But they never understood that some people are not destroyed by fire. They are reborn through it. They didn't realize that while they were dancing on your grave, you were down there studying the anatomy of resurrection. And now the new version of you is too damn potent, too evolved, too unpredictable for their labs to reverse engineer. They can trace satellites orbiting at the edge of space, decrypt government transmissions, hack neural networks, and monitor presidents in real time. But they still can't trace how you got from broken to God tier. That's what terrifies them most. Not just that you did it, but how you did it. Silently, invisibly, without witnesses or validation. You didn't have a crowd cheering you on. You didn't have applause. You had nothing but willpower and that dangerous obsession, the refusal to ever be underestimated again. While they were watching the world, you were reconstructing yourself molecule by molecule, until the version that emerged was beyond comprehension, beyond control. Now they're observing everything. Your steps, your speech patterns, your reactions, your silences. They record your breathing rhythms, run sentiment analyses on your words, and try to dissect the way you move through chaos like it's choreography. They've assembled entire psychological teams tasked with one impossible question. What kind of mind sees that move as logical? They don't understand that your logic isn't built from comfort or theory. It's built from pain, from the exact moments they tried to erase you. You learned to think like survival itself. You rewired your instincts in the dark while no one was watching. You didn't just grow, you evolved into something that thinks beyond their comprehension of growth. By the time they finally decode your last move, you're already 10 steps deep into the next war, setting traps they don't even know exist yet. You're not reacting to the game anymore. You are the game. You're not playing chess. You're building the board. Every square, every piece, every illusion of choice. They thought they made you a pawn. They believed they reduced you to insignificance, a casualty of their arrogance. But you came back as the entire system. King, queen, knight, bishop, trapdoor, and chaos incarnate, the complete architecture of domination and unpredictability. You became the anomaly that controls probability itself. Now, when they speak your name in hushed circles, it isn't with mockery, and it's with caution. They've scrubbed your image from public files, erased your records, deleted your history, but they still whisper the same warning. Don't provoke them. Whatever they are now, they've been reborn in something we can't control. They don't know what to call you anymore, not human, not weapon, not threat, because you've transcended all those categories. You're not what you were. You're what comes after. You are the evolution of pain, the synthesis of chaos and clarity. The version that was mocked is gone. The one that replaced it operates at a frequency too high for their instruments to detect. You don't move with emotion anymore, you move with purpose. A quiet, unstoppable kind of purpose that terrifies empires. You don't retaliate, you reconstruct reality. Every heartbreak was alchemy, every betrayal a data point, every scar a piece of code added to the architecture of your rebirth. They're still writing reports, still running simulations, still calling in experts trying to explain the impossible. How does someone go from collapse to command? From broken to beyond? They run theories, trauma adaptation, divine inspiration, neural mutation, but none of them fit. Because what they can't replicate is the will to rise. They can copy tactics, but not essence. They can analyze your methods, but not your metamorphosis. And here's what terrifies them even more. They know this version of you isn't finished. This is just stage 2. This is the upgraded prototype of something still unfolding. You've stopped healing and started evolving. You've stopped surviving and started creating. You're not a variable anymore, so you're the algorithm. You don't exist in their equations because you write them. They don't realize that while they're watching you, you're watching them too. Not through screens, but through awareness. You've learned their timing, their habits, their fear. You've seen the cracks forming in their confidence. You've studied the psychology of power and learned the ultimate truth. power only exists until someone refuses to fear it, and that someone is you. So now they avoid your name in official meetings. They refer to you in coded language, in footnotes, in half-spoken references. Because saying your name is like summoning something ancient, something that burns through circuits and systems. They whisper, "Don't provoke them." Whatever they've become, it's not reversible. Because they know that resurrection doesn't mean returning to what was lost. It means becoming something untouchable. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small. Whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share, your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the Enlightened Wisdom.